What's going on, everybody? Back with some more GitHub actions in Bash. To recap, in our last time together, we played around with this new Kanban board I made for getting stuff done around the house. We achieved the Herculean feat of automatically moving these GitHub issues into the backlog column on creation. We've been using it all week. It's great, but there's a small annoyance, and you can actually see it right here. When we move a card to done, the GitHub issue stays open. You can't have that, right? Because then when you look at your issues view over here, it looks like it's not even done yet. Yeah, there it is. My wife did a great job with that, by the way. It's that access point cable has just been freely dangling from the ceiling for as long as I can remember, and I don't even know what to do with myself now that it's just neatly tucked in there. But at any rate, we're gonna write some custom bash, much like we did last week, to automatically close the issue when it gets moved into done. So I'm gonna open up Emacs here. And let's make the font a little bigger. And we got this repo here. When we last left off, I just had this single script. And it took a lot of reverse engineering to figure out how to do this with the API, but we got there. It worked out okay. And as of now, we've only got one workflow defined. Looks like this. Oh, we can probably get rid of this. Don't need that anymore. So, looking at the types of, I'm pretty sure that much like we have a GitHub action here when we open a new issue, I think you can attach one to when an issue moves, like a card. Let's see if I'm right. GitHub actions, what are they called again? Event? Trigger? Seems reasonable. Events that trigger workflows. Oh, I saw project card right there. All right, beautiful. Project card moved. All right. The good news is this will be a lot easier to test because it's way easier to create, to move cards than to create them, right? I can just keep fiddling around with that one card. So I think I'm just going to make a new one of these files here. But how about first, so it makes sense, we can do issue opened. Okay, and then we'll do issue moved. And I don't think that should affect anything about the existing action. So move new issue to project. Just touching up the names. Seems reasonable to me. All right, so we're gonna go on issues typed. Actually, we want project card. Issue typed moved. And we're going to say open or close issue. Open, close, issue on move. All right, cool. So now we have our script here. So we probably need to eventually modify it to do two different things. Either open the issue or close it, or do what it was already doing. I could make a new script. Let's see what's in there. I forget. Okay, we've got, yeah, I think we're going to want to reuse this script because we got some good stuff in here. We've got this curl command. We got this thing that posts data. We're going to want to reuse all that. All right. So how about I'm just going to write how I would like to call the script, and then we'll write enough bash so that it works. Why don't we go with that approach? So before we were passing in the GitHub event issue ID. Why don't we just do this? We're gonna go bash, action bash, new, and then it'll expect an arg2. Okay, so we're gonna modify the positional arguments a little bit. And I'm gonna do that with a case statement. So let me make sure we don't have, okay, so we are binding that to 1, so we're gonna need to redo that. Dang, so that's a global. We really coded ourselves into a corner. That's okay. It was my first stream. Okay. This will be fun. I'm going to do a case statement to handle the top level, like, okay, is the issue new or is it just getting moved? How do you do a case statement in Bash? Bash case statements. These are great, I just don't remember how to do them. Yeah, okay. Anybody was missing just in. That's no big deal. Case $in. So we're gonna go new. And then if $1 is new, it's going to, that's our log line, and we still need to figure out what to do with issue ID, but this post is just calling out to function, so that'll still work just fine. We'll figure it out. You need 2 semicolons after each case. That's a gotcha. And we'll do moved. We're going to say existing issue we're going to need the issue ID here too. Maybe it can still be a global. Okay. I'm getting distracted. Existing issue moved. And that's enough to trigger there. And then how do you wrap this up? Okay. And then we'll have unknown command. Always have to have a default case to shame the operator if they passed in something they weren't supposed to, right? And it'll exit 1. One of my favorite things about Bash is the string inversion. Like at the end of case statements, if you weren't aware, ESAC is just case backwards. Just like if you're writing an if statement, it's like if my thing, then you always end the case with FI. I like that. It's tricky. Oh, cool. So let's just stub this out and make sure that the script is working. I'm going to run it. So if I do new, it'll grab our token like before, moving new issue blank to deboard. Okay. And if I do move, no command move. Whoops. Where'd you go, Emacs? I called it moved. Let's call it move. Beautiful. Okay, so how are we getting issue ID before? I guess that's the question. I should have looked at that before I changed it, but you know, we'll get it out of GitHub. Okay, so we were just passing it in. Where are we getting it within GitHub Actions? Ah, you know how we can do this? Psh, easy. We're going to move this to an environment variable. Then we only have to deal with one argument. How awesome is that? So we want that passed here. Bash action bash new. And then over on issue moved. Same thing. Oh, that's cool. Because it was already a global. We don't have to change any of our code. We did great. We do have to update this. Doesn't get any better than that. May have spoken too soon, because here we're hooking the issue. We're hooking the event onto the issue, so there should be a GitHub event issue ID in there. Here we're attaching it to a project card, so I wonder if we have to query the associated issue. That blows. This will work great. Why don't we test it just to make sure we didn't really hose anything up. So our new issue should still work. I didn't want to break that. I'm going to go ahead and commit that. I made an attempt to write good commit messages at the beginning of this little campaign, but I think we're, you know, I know you all. This is how I code at home. I don't really pay attention to commit messages. You don't have to when you work by yourself. No one's ever going to ask you about stuff. All right, let's see what actions we got defined. It already didn't like that. No event trigger defined in on. Oh, that's just an issue moved. That's okay. I think it should still fire. All right, we're going to go new thing. And if we didn't hose anything up too bad, this should get moved to the backlog column any second now. There it goes. Actually, it shouldn't, because I just remembered that I commented it out. Yeah. But it should act like it was about to, and that's good enough for me. We should still see the issue ID. Yep. All right. That's good enough for me. I'm going to uncomment that. So we've moved issue ID into a global. That's great because it's just handled by GitHub Actions, but we need to figure out how to get the issue ID from a project card. I think it might first be good just to see what's inside of GitHub event. That's what we did last time. So GitHub is passing in some helpful context. Log GitHub context. That's what we're looking for. So how about we just do this? We'll even pipe it through JQ. Okay. No, uncommenting that, and we got this thing. Let's go ahead and close this. All done testing that. Now we're just testing moving cards. So if I move it here, that should trigger the action. Position, this workflow is not valid. Oh, it got mad that I put the JQ in the wrong context. Yeah, that's not gonna work. That's part of the command, not part of the template. Whoops. Try again. I'm hoping that the issue ID is somewhere in here. I don't expect it to be, though. I expect that I'm going to have to be able to query it. Oh, it didn't like my JQ. Echo object. Take out JQ. Just streaming to YouTube today. Last week I did Facebook and YouTube at the same time, thanks to this restream tool that I'm using, and it was too overwhelming. I didn't like having to watch two sets of comments, and my YouTube channel is also not as busy, so I know that I'll mostly be ignored until I get this stuff figured out. Hopefully the stream is better quality. I figured out my stuff on this end. I'm using this OBS suite, which is very slick, and I have a feeling it's going to make a noticeable impact. Let's move that card again and see if we fixed it. There it goes. Did it just echo the word object? It did. Okay, I didn't do that right. Oh, I forgot to set it to JSON. I forgot to pass it into this function to JSON. That's weird. To JSON. Oh, and I bet that's why JQ didn't work. Still getting the hang of this GitHub Action stuff. Try and move. That was triggered. This is the right run. I did not think I would be stuck on this step. This is something I've already done. Ah! One more move. There we go. All right, we got some output. There we go. So we are looking for the issue ID. That would be sweet if that were in here. I'm not expecting, yeah. So we got project card. That's a whole different type of entity. The project cards are not issues. They're just tied to issues. We got repository owner. Okay, so we are going to have to fetch it. We got node ID, ID. Let's see if we're doing anything that resembles that in our script already. So we're looking for something that fetches the issue ID with a project ID. First project ID, move issue, move issue payload. Backload. Okay, so in order to move the issue ID, okay, so we do not have something like that because we were before starting with the issue ID and we were just creating a card and we didn't even care about what ID came back from that. So this is new territory for us. GitHub REST API fetch project card. At least it's a little simpler. I feel like this is a simpler use case than what we were doing before. Get a project card. Okay. So you just need the card ID, which will be an integer. Oh yeah, we're gonna need that too. That's which column it came from. Okay, project card. There's the ID, okay. It's going to be GitHub event project card ID. We'll just use a global again. That's okay. Let's just see what that runs. Let's run it locally. And the ID we're working with is this guy. Oh, I don't have the token. Okay. I'm still drinking coffee. Sorry, everybody. Let's just say fetch project card. Get. I forgot that I had all these nice little curl functions. It's going to be projects, columns, cards, and then the ID. Oh, you can't?
No, it's fuzzy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I might not keep this one. Nobody's watching anyway.
I'm watching. Yeah, see, isn't that weird? Like how squid did, you just can't read it.
Because I can read it on here. I'm on YouTube. Maybe it's still encoding?
Oh, I wonder if that's it. Okay, ignore it.
Yeah, it's just going to YouTube. It's no big deal.
Cool.
Thanks for watching, though. It's weird how I can't see you on here. I thought I would have one viewer.
I'll wave.
Oh, it does say, it says two watching now. Oh, yeah, it's me and you. That makes sense.
These cinnamon rolls.
All right.
Very excited.
I think I'm going to take a little coffee break. Hey everybody, had a moment of clarity while grabbing coffee. We probably don't need to fetch the project card. All we need is the ID. We just need to get the associated issue. Let me just look that up. Oh man. Maybe it is this endpoint. I wonder if it takes any other parameters. I'm going to stay on this road of just fetching the card. Maybe there'll be something in there. Let's try it. Okay. Not really seeing anything here. It looks just like what was in the docs. Oh! I mean, there's a content URL that links to the issue. So that's got to be somewhere in here. Look for 27 somewhere in the output. It's just in the content URL. I mean, I wonder if I could just use that content URL. I can parse it out of there. That's kind of a pain in the butt, though. GitHub REST API fetch issue from project card. Get an issue event. Okay, let's instead look at the API call that you need to open or close an issue. How about that? That's probably in create an issue, update an issue. That's probably an update. Okay, so all you need is that content URL. So that is coming back in the payload. So why don't we do this? Fetch project card. Instead of just fetching it, we're getting the issue. Fetch issue URL from project card. And we'll pass this in. Just use a test ID for now. Fetch issue. And what did that look like coming back? That would be in creator. Or no, that would just be in .content URL. Perfect. Maybe we can work with this. Let's try it. So we have the URL we need. The issue number is somewhere in there. We have two different options. We can either hand this right to curl, or we can, since our curl functions are already providing that base URL, and I don't want to have to break more stuff before we move forward, we could just parse it out of there. That could be kind of fun. Parse a string with bash and exact number. So here we're using sed. That could work. I'm just going to move that string right to a function so we don't have to keep waiting each time. Okay, so we're all set up there. We could use sed. There's no white space here, so I don't know if this awk thing is going to do it for us. I've never done this with sed. Let's try it. So echo sed. What does our pattern look like? We don't need this function. We're just going to figure it out in the shell. But I'd still like to have this open. I'm going to use pipes just so I don't have to deal with all the dashes. I think that works. I mean, I could just copy it verbatim. Except for the end part. Repos, ARECR, planning, issues, and then replace it with nothing, and then do it exactly once. We'll go with that. What a gross hack. I love it. Now we can make this fetch issue ID from project URL. And then so we do a get, we parse out the content URL, and we just snag the issue number off the end there. Did you know that you could do this with sed? Most people just use slashes, but it does work with pipes, which is helpful if you are parsing something that has a lot of slashes in it. I think it's kind of like a CSV, where you can just use any delimiter between the columns. Let's see how that works. That works. Let's see if the script works. All right. Fetch. Oh, forgot to change the function name. ID. Boom. And I think if we make that JQ-R, it'll take off those quotes. Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so we have our issue ID. Now we're going to be updating that to, okay, so we have a couple of problems. We know that this card is being moved. we know which issue the card is tied to because we can fetch the ID. And now we need to know two things. We need to know which column the card is being moved to, and that's about it, actually. We only need to know one thing. We just need to know what column the card is being moved to and what we need to do with the issue based on that. So open or closed. If it's going to done, it is going to be closed. If it's going to another column, we can just open it. So that could be tricky, because now we have to dive into the column API. Okay. I'm going to turn off the baby monitor real quick. Let's look at the column API. Get a project column. I think we've actually done this before. This is already in our script. We have backlog column ID. This isn't going to be so bad. Basically, based on my requirements, we only need to close the card if it gets moved into done. So we can just as easily make a done column ID. We'll do this. Done column ID. Yeah, we know from GitHub Actions that when this gets triggered, we have some information's getting passed in based on the action. Okay, it's getting moved. We have from. Does it tell us where it moved to? I guess that would be the current column ID. After ID, column. Okay, I guess that would be the current column ID. So we can pass that in with GitHub Actions and compare the current column ID with what is the done. And if it matches, mark it as closed. If it doesn't, mark it as open. That way we'll handle the case of like moving it out of done. You know, if you decide that you're not done with something, it'll reopen it, which would be kind of cool. Let's do that. So within the actions moved, project card ID, we're going to pass in another global to new column ID. And that's project card column ID. So we can probably stop using a test issue and just switch to the project card ID from here. Let's try running that. That should be enough just to make sure that we have all the data on the table that we need. Try moving this. That should have triggered the action. Close some tabs, get control of my life. It's running. Now that didn't do anything. It should have just printed a bunch of stuff. Issue ID is 27. Done column ID. And new column ID. All right, so we have all the data we need on the table. Now we just got to write a little bit of logic. So if the we're going to do if the new column ID matches done column ID. That's going to look new column ID done column ID, then why don't we change this to just an assignment? Then log existing issue move to done closing. Else existing issue moved keeping open. Whoops. Okay, move all that stuff here as, let's see, we don't need done column anymore. And actually past that, we don't need the new column ID anymore. I mean, like once we determine that it is or is not the done with it. Okay, so new column ID, done column ID. Let's try that. Let's push it up. Some logic. I looked, while I was taking my last coffee break, I looked into that issue. This stream was like all fuzzy on my wife's phone, but it looked totally fine on YouTube on the desktop. So I'm going to assume that was just YouTube figuring stuff out. Sometimes new videos on YouTube like look all grainy like that, and then it just magically gets fixed. So I'm going to have faith that they're going to figure it out. Move this card. So I move that to blocked, so it should stay open, or at least print that it would normally. Existing issue 27 moved, keeping open. Perfect. Let's try this. If I move it to done, it should print out that the top of the if statement. Saying it right now, with GitHub issues, Bash is the way to go. It was a little painful to set up at first, but I'm loving how lightweight this is. Because all my other GitHub actions, like when I've tried to like write them with like Python and stuff, that just takes too long to spin up, you know. All right, existing issue 27, move to done, closing. Perfect. Last thing we got to do, we just need to write a function to update the open or close status of an issue. I bet I could find a really nice one-liner. We'll go Stack Overflow. Classic. Set the state parameter to closed. Oops. Update an issue. Oh, sweet. So it supports, I was just looking at that. It supports the patch method. So I won't need to do anything goofy like fetch all the current state of the issue and then hand it back. I can just update only what I'm looking to update. And that's repos, owner, repo issues, issue number. Okay. So why don't we do this? change issue status. And then, so we have a post, we have a get, we're going to need a patch. And now I can finally do this. I'm going to write a new function called curl, which is just going to have all this stuff. And it's going to take 2 parameters. Well, nah, that's stupid. I'll just copy paste it. Who cares? It's going to look a lot like that. It's going to be put, sorry, patch. That's all fine. It's probably going to take some data. We'll leave that in there, and it's going to take a URL. Let's try it. So change issue status. That's going to be patch. Add a URL. So this should expect the issue ID. So why don't we do this? Since we're going to have a lot of positional args getting passed into this thing, we'll make it very clear what we expect. Local issue number 1. We've just been hard coding that everywhere. And then issue state, either open or closed. Okay. So local state 2. Then we could even do a log line. Setting issue number to state. Okay, so that's just a string. And it's pretty tiny, so we can just make it some stringified JSON. Review. State. Let's just get it all down first. Now we have to escape all these double quotes. Alright, cool. So we are calling patch on repos, Eric, you're planning issue, whatever issue number we're getting. And we're sending that up just a new state. All went according to plan. We should be able to go change issue status. Going to go, you pass in the issue ID, and it's either open or closed. It irritates me how those are, no, that sounds right. Those are both edge. I was about to go grammar nerd, but I realized it was wrong. There's nothing worse than a grammar nerd who's also wrong. Okay. In this block of the if statement, we are closing, so closed. And this one, we are open. So we're in move, fetch the issue ID. If the column ID match is done, we're going to close it, and otherwise we're going to open it. And then since we're already logging within this, why don't we just move this log line out? Existing issue moved to column. Nah, we don't need the column. It was moved. That's all I gotta know. this could be the magical part in our coding session where everything's just going to work. This might be it. Just in time for the cinnamon rolls to come out of the oven. My wife is making cinnamon rolls right now. All right. I'm going to move this here. This should stay open because it's still open. It's in the block column. Let's see what GitHub Actions did. Printed a bunch of stuff. Existing issue 27 moved. Setting 27 to open. And that prints out a bunch of JSON. Here's the rub. If I move this to done, let's see if it'll mark it as closed. There it goes. See what log line it said. Setting issue 27 to closed. Is it closed? Booyah! It's closed. Let's reopen it. Move it back to whip. Look at all this activity. It's a busy ticket, huh? So it should reopen this. There it goes. And it's open. This makes me happy. We'll mark it to close. All right, that's about it. Let's clean it up now. Because last time I didn't do a very good job of cleaning things up. I'll try to do that now. All right, I like the log lines. We probably need to clean up our GitHub action, like remove all the printing and stuff. Issue. Oh, these look really similar. Okay. So we don't need that anymore. That's about it. All right, everybody, good stuff. That went way more smoothly than last time. Why don't we go ahead and put that in the books? Resolutions. I will update this. That's the second live stream in the books. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully the quality worked out and stuff. I think I got things fixed on my end, but I'm going to check it out on YouTube, and if it's just unwatchable, unless it's unwatchable, I'll post it. Thanks for watching if you stuck around, and I'll see you next time.